You are now listening to
Chakras and Shotguns. Welcome to Chakras and Shotguns, the podcast that guides you on your journey of spiritual development and personal preparedness. I'm Jenn. I'm a lawyer again, but I'm a tarot card reader, human design reader, lover of all things wellness.
And I'm Mik, a marketer, energy healer, and prepper.
So, ceremony, that's a word that I don't even know if we think about it that often, but it's been an integral part of human civilization for thousands of years. So from big ceremonies to little ceremonies, it pops up all the time. Weddings, graduations, church, right?
Absolutely.
It's a part of life where we can find comfort, where we can find strength, where we can find community. So today, in today's episode, we took a deep dive into ceremony and like what that all means with a spiritual ceremonialist, Kira Buckley. We're so excited to have her back on the show. And we answer questions like, why is ceremony so important? And how can we incorporate more ceremony into our everyday lives?
Yes, but before we get into that, we do want to remind you guys to make sure that you sign up for our mailing list. We send out a lot of spiritual tips. We send out discounts on things. We'll let you know when we drop new merch. We'll let you know about new events that we're doing, both virtual and in person. So just make sure you're signed up on the mailing list so you can get everything chakras and shotguns related.
I want to do the Birdman.
I see. I was like,
we got some stuff coming out. My ring's too loud for the audio.
So you can sign up for the mailing list by using the link in the show description or going to chakrasandshotguns.com.
All right, let's get into the breath work meditation that we always do. I was going back and forth on, is this ceremony? This is more like a ritual.
Yeah.
Maybe the episode is ceremony.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll get into the ritual of breath work.
Love it.
For this one, I think I want you to sit up or you can stand. And I want to get into the heart space. I think we can spend a lot of time in the lower chakras, but the heart can carry so much and it can really impact how expansive we're feeling and like what we're allowing ourselves to feel. So go ahead and place your hands face down somewhere on your heart space. Go ahead and flicker your eyes closed. And let's start to find our breath. Take a deep inhale in through your nose. Hold at the top. And exhale completely out through your mouth. Let's do that again. Inhale through the nose. Open your mouth, exhale. Let's do one more. Inhale through your nose. Can you find something you can let go? When you open your mouth, exhale completely. Go ahead and seal your lips closed. And allow yourself to breathe normally. Bring your awareness to your shoulders. Are they rounded forward? Do you find yourself slouching? Notice if you're creating less space around your heart. So can you sit up? Can you shrug your shoulders up to your ears and then back and down your back? Can you find openness in your heart space? How does that feel for you? Allow yourself to visualize a green light filling up your entire chest cavity. Maybe it starts small and you allow it to grow. Does it get more vibrant? If you can conjure up the feeling of love and acceptance for yourself, for your heart chakra, go ahead and do that now. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And sigh the breath back out through your nose. Take another deep breath in through your nose. Exhale back out through your nose. Maybe stretch your arms up and overhead. Tilt your head back, acknowledging that you're here, that you're in this space, that you're open to love and open to receive love. And then bring your hands back into your heart. Flicker your eyes open. Welcome back.
That was great, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you as always.
So this is, I'm going to share. I was on a plant medicine journey a few days ago, and there was some stuff going on in my heart. And when I tell you, I let out 2 of the biggest burps, like that I have maybe ever let out. And it was like one on one side and one on the other. And I was like, I wonder if there was like a blockage there. And even as I was doing this, I never really feel the need to burp when I'm doing the breath work. But as we were doing this, I felt like a little something. But like, think about that energy of like opening up your heart. It's coming up to your throat. And so, if you're feeling a little gassy, I'm sorry, but we're moving energy here.
Exactly. I was going to add a little context just so people don't think you are just being gassy for no reason. Like folks who may not have had like any body work or energetic work, like that is a common thing to happen. Where if you're moving kind of energy blocks in the body, it may come out as gas. So just wanted to add that context for folks who might be like, why should you talk about burping?
I know, because I don't really eat a lot before I do a plant medicine journey. So it wasn't like I was full, and I was like, what was that? He was like, it was a lot.
Okay. I don't know if we needed the dramatization, but
I do demonstrate.
But we appreciate
a live reenactment.
We appreciate it. All right. I feel like I'm in a Lifetime movie now, reenactments and everything.
Anyway.
So let's talk about our wonderful guest that we're having today. Kira Buckley is back for a 3rd time, right? I believe, yeah. Kira wears many hats. Not only has she served as a mentor for me and my journey in shamanism and kind of just in general the spiritual path, she also is a holistic health practitioner. She is an herbalist, a writer, a motivational speaker. She's an acupuncturist. And as Jen mentioned earlier, she is a spiritual ceremonialist. So she regularly hosts retreats internationally and domestically. And she holds several events throughout LA during different parts of the year, although she is relocating soon, but she'll be back in LA periodically to do some of those events. So,
and I'm going to her next retreat, and I'm excited.
Yeah, Jen's checking that out later this year. So, with no further ado, we welcome back to the show, Miss Kira Buckley. Thank you so much for joining us again on Chakras and Shotguns. We love having you on. We've mentioned you in previous episodes. It was taught some of the wisdom that you've kind of given us on different topics. So happy to just have you firsthand back on the podcast.
I'm happy to be here. I love it here. We should do this more often. But thank you.
I have a couple of topics in mind.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So today we are talking about ceremonies. and we know that you are a spiritual ceremonialist. And so I wanted you to kind of start by just talking about, at the most basic level, what do you consider to be a ceremony?
So I would say our usual references of ceremony, like marriages, or going to a funeral, celebration of life, graduations, are what we call low hanging fruit. They're the more easeful experiences to like acquaint yourself with ceremonial life. And where I come in is bringing us back to the origin, and the essence of like the rite of passage and what it means to be alive and experience life in all of these transitions. So, at the core, ceremony holds that energy of just celebrating the different transitions that happen for us throughout life.
I think of the word ritual as well in the context of ceremony. Are those different concepts or the same thing? Is it just semantics, or are there separations?
It is different. And to separate, so you would put your ritual inside the ceremony. So let's say ceremony is your container that holds your regimen, your ritual. When you think about the elements that make up a ceremony, you have some drumming and some chanting and some singing. There's are certain protocols, right, that go in with ceremony. Even if you're looking at a wedding program, there is a order of service, there's an invocation, there's an opening. So ritual is what we just insert inside of the ceremony. And one of the key elements to having a ceremony is making sure that there is some type of ritual that brings you back to why we're here. Why are we celebrating? What is the ritual, which is a practice that is going to deepen my devotion and my love for celebrating this thing or this event?
Mm.
Mm.
So first Sunday is a ceremony, and communion is a ritual.
Exactly. Very good. I love examples. Make it tangible.
When you were first explaining ceremony, the word that my head was crossing,
Mm,
of like even like graduation, like crossing the stage of like
mhm,
or entering into some like phase of life. And I'm putting this together all on the fly. And like there's certain things that come up in hoodoo and voodoo and
mhm,
other spiritual practices about like uncrossing roads and like removing roadblocks, and what is the importance of crossing in
mm.
ceremony of like that.
I'll add one more. Fraternities and sororities, when you become a member of a
Mm.
fraternity, you cross over into the fraternity, so
So I love this question because now we're going more into the ancestral or like the indigenous origin of ceremony. Um, the crossing comes from the term rite. So when you go to the origin of ceremony, our ancestors, the indigenous way is that you're entering into a rite of passage, RITE, and that rite constitutes that I am crossing from one way of life into another, from one season into another, from summer into a fall. And so the crossing signifies, again, the graduation. It's the physical manifestation of transmutation. We cross things to transmute energy and to change the state, right? Which is the origin of transmutation. There's this alchemical process that's happening. And to bring it more physical and tangible, the graduate that is crossing the stage is coming from the student and that has put in all the work and taken all these classes to now being this learned, as my grandmother would say, this learned individual into society that can hold his or her position in the pathway of what they study. So you take that, right, as above, so below, and apply it to everything. The crossing and the ancestors, I would say, in my point of origin, like the indigenous African ancestry of ceremony, the rite of passage was given so that you make reverence to crossing and transmuting energy every step of the way along your growing, along your spiritual knowing, along your community, right? There's a passage that is involved in and coming from adolescence into a young man or a young woman or into motherhood. And so all of these are crossing overs, transmute energy.
There's so much to think about and unpack, right?
Yeah, and also, this is not me beating up on myself, about how flippant we can be about the
Yeah.
ceremony of
Yeah.
certain things.
Yeah.
I remember I was gonna skip my college graduation.
Mhm.
I was like, "I don't need to do that," and my mom was like, "You're doing it." I was like, I didn't. I was like, "I don't care about that," but
Yeah.
it was this.
It's a ceremony.
It's a ceremony, and
Mhm.
even of the fact of like celebrating, but like when you break it down into those elements of
Mhm.
like, this is where you are, this is where you're going, and you're moving into this, it feels a lot more
Mhm.
solemn, and you have a lot more reverence for
Yeah.
what that is.
Yo, I think that leads me to my next question. Like, why do you see, or what do you think is the importance of us as humans participating in ceremonies?
Oh, this is juicy. I like this. Humanity and ceremonies in itself, and it seems almost like humans being and humans doing, uh, contradicting the way we contradict ourselves just in our daily living. But the necessity of ceremony brings us back to what it means to be a human being, not just doing, but what it means to be a human being. And there's this sense of connection that's just at the very core. The sense of connection, not just with the thing that I'm graduating from or with the event that I'm celebrating, but now I'm bringing in perhaps community, even if you're in ceremony by yourself, perhaps nature, right? So at the very basics, the opportunity for us to, I'm going to use Jen's word, bring reverence and sacredness back to my life, my way of being, my way of living. I'm bringing in these elements of nature, of the directions, north, south, east, and west. So now I'm pulling in more elements in the ceremony: air, earth, water, and fire. Now my community, my elders as well, which is something that we've lost, uh, which I think will come up later in this conversation, but something that we've lost in our reverence of ceremony is going back into, in Africa, we say the Sankofa way. So facing forward and looking back. So the opportunity for humanity to be in ceremony is a reminder for why we're living. Why are you, why do you breathe? As opposed to everything for granted and just, going on and things become mundane. And uh, and to take the or let me say, to bring the sacredness back into to ceremony, that your way of living can be ceremonial, and it doesn't necessarily have to be grand, but everything can be sacred. You can bring reverence and make going to relieve yourself in the restroom in the mornings and meditate in the afternoons and pray before you go to bed. That's a ceremonial way of living, that you are honoring the essence of why you live, not just exist, but why am I present at this time in this earth right now? And I think that's pivotal for humanity, to have connection, to have community, to have some type of reverence of nature. And that reminds me, I'm not just alive to work and to buy things, to take care of little people. So the ceremony brings me back into the spice and the joy of life, and it's fun. It's joy involved in that too.
I definitely wanna come back to those moments that can be ceremonial, but I wanna make sure we kinda talk a little bit more about the elements of a ceremony. So we talked about rituals as being one. I imagine, like, some type of intention or intention setting is also a part of it. What other elements are there in a ceremony?
So I would say there's a core. If we would package a ceremony, and I was given a ceremony box, which I had before, right? There are these elements that are pivotal for building this event of sacredness. So there's some type of spiritual connection. Doesn't matter what you believe in, what you honor, who you talk to above and around you. There's some connection to spirit. So we're bringing in a deity, an entity, your ancestral connections as well, your angels that walk with you. There's a ritual practice that is involved. There is the sacred space, which is, I would say, a core, uh, a very core element that is needed for every ceremony is that you open the space, but you name the space. So now we're going into like land rights, which is also another lost element of ceremonies, and which we see now as ceremonies have become more popular, and plant ceremonies and spiritual cleansing ceremonies. And one thing I pay attention to is where it's happening, where it's taking place. So if we leave the country and we go to another land, honoring that land, not just who owns the land, we're not talking about who bought it, but the indigenous people that put work and blood and sweat into that. So land rights are very important. Honoring your spiritual deities are important. Having some type of ritual practice that brings you back into why we're here. So you have some chanting, some music, some drumming, things like that. And then you have what I say is some a la carte experiences, right? Where we get to bring in community, having an elder present or honoring your elders is really important, because you're paying homage to not just who came and what came before you, but in that space, the eldest or the elder in the room holds the energy, not to give us permission, but just to honor the ancestral connection. And so that's the importance of our elders. Um, Having a purpose and intention, and then really honoring the living and the non living in that space. And so I would say all of these are key elements for any kind of ceremony. Again, whether you're with a group or by yourself, meditating, or uh, Jen, celebrating your own graduation. If it's from like a yoga teacher training program, that you light a candle for yourself and you set an intention and you burn a little Palo Santo and you acknowledge. It's the acknowledgement goes a long way, again, to why we would open ourselves to ceremony.
So a couple of things came up while you were talking about that. One would think, well, in this season, it's politics season in
Mm,
America. And one would think, how is politics going to come up in a conversation about ceremony?
yeah.
But I felt like when you were talking about indigenous people and how they practice ceremony and intention setting, it kept the true nature and the purpose of that community top of mind, top
Yeah.
of heart, right? This is who we are, this is what we do, this is, this is what we stand for to a certain extent. And I feel like you can have your own thoughts about American patriotism. I know I do. But I do feel like there were certain elements growing up of ritual and ceremony that we had
Yeah.
as a country that I felt like made people be more patriotic, and them kind of falling apart, I think is kind of shaking the table, and it's making us question who are we and what do we
Yeah.
stand for? And like, so we've lost that, and that's kind of
Yeah.
gone away.
Yeah.
I graze lightly in this. While I'm no stranger to politics, it is also not something that we insert daily into our lives because of the work that we do. However, we're not naive to it, and I would say in this day and age, it feels more of a block than a tool of resonance. So I'm in a session and I'm clearing the way to prepare for ceremony. And one of the blockages or things that came up was this anxiety around the season that we're in, and the and I just shared this with the client, but there used to be a rite or protocol in African ancestry where they would do spirit calling ceremonies. And it would be around the what we call election time, but in I would say in that era, it would just be the cultural context of shifting leaders. And when anytime your leaders were shifting, whatever season, you will call in the spirits and the gods and goddesses of that season, but also they will bring in the leaders who were going up for election or re-election, or who were putting themselves in the hat to be put in a position, and they would pray over them. And they will call in their ancestors, and they will call in the gods and nature, but they would do these spirit calling ceremonies to relieve anxiety, for one, but to integrate the leaders into communities so that we are working together and not in a fear based space of um, maybe feeling a little bit resistant to the leaders that are coming in. And so this is, I would say, one of the lost practices in what happens when society, culture, America has gotten away from everything that we do is a ceremony and a rite of passage. And surely electing a new president or state official into office is also ceremonial. And that's not something that we need to we have to shy away from, or it doesn't have to be led through anxiety. But I think the position now that a lot of spirit leaders, thought leaders are taking is formulating these small groups and these ceremonial spaces where we can address the fear and the anxiety together, and then drive that energy into calling on whoever it is that we trust, Mother Earth, Gaia, to continue to do what she does to take care of us and our new leaders.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
My second thought came back. One of my favorite things that Kira says in ceremony, in session with her, and she says this all the time, and it's such a mantra for me, is move at half speed.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's, we're coming out of a meditation. She was like, don't get up too quick, move at half speed.
Mm.
But sometimes it's also just a reminder to be present and how we're just go, 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 go. And I'll move that quickly through a plant ceremony until the plant tell me to slow down. Tell me to slow. Or I'm just, just moving too quickly. And this conversation around Sarah is very mindful of that.
Yeah.
That you don't just move into the next thing. You don't just slide in the next president, jump into a job. But you slow down, you celebrate, you're present, you're mindful, you take your time with it. And I think the impatience
Yeah.
that we can have, or even with like incorporating rituals, we're like, I don't have time for that. I gotta do that. And
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
just taking the time to start your day, how you're going to start your day mindfully, going to move about your day, how are
Yeah.
you going to be present around that? Like
Mm.
it's really, really powerful. It can be very daunting, but making yourself slow down
Mhm.
is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something I need to do.
I think that gets to the question of, if we are so busy and we don't make room for ceremony, what type of effects can that have on us as
Mm.
as people?
I'm glad this question has come up so much resonance around, and this is where we forsake, I would say, ceremony and underestimating the power of what ceremony does for the somatic, for the body, for regulating the nervous system. Exactly what you just said, Jen, for these quick movements, right? Without even knowing, we living in a culture of urgency. So if you wake up every day into a society of fight or flight, you don't know that you're breathing like someone's chasing you all the time just because of the frequency that you live in. And so then you bring in ceremony to purposely and intentionally help you, invite you. It's never by force. It's always an invitation. Ceremonies always come by invitation, right? To help you, to invite you, to suggest to you, to just pivot you a little bit into a a pace that's slower than your normal pace, which is why I say move at half speed. Whatever your normal speed is definitely contradicting to the medicine what ceremony has come to offer you. So not having ceremony, not, or let me say the absence of it, and really not acknowledging the sacredness and the reverence of it brings these missing components in our life. One, a connection to nature, a connection to community, forsaken gathering. There's something that is a lost art, especially in some of the BIPOC and African communities, is the storyteller, the griot, right? The having ceremonies and gatherings just to tell stories, to listen to the elders, right? So there's an absence of connection in the ancestral lens. And then you have these biomechanisms that are very, very essential. And ceremony allows the pivot of breath and attention, intention and attention, and just a small pivot in the way that you're breathing, or just acknowledging that breath is trapped somewhere in the body. And then come into ceremony to allow everything to slow down so everything comes up to the surface now. So the presence and the trust and the opportunity to create more spaces of acknowledging what I'm feeling, acknowledging what I'm not feeling, acknowledging my partner, my neighbor, right? As people serve as mirrors for us. I would say another perhaps downfall, having an absence of ceremony would be the no awareness of these pivotal shifts, um, which is, in my opinion, can create a sad existence that you have no awareness at all. We're just living. And there are people on this earth that are here just to live. They're not even thinking about spiritually evolving. That's not why they're here. And that's fine. And I think also that creates a space of contrast for us. There are people that are here just to make us aware of what life would be like if I never acknowledge these pivotal shifts in my life. Here's your example. You get to see it. But the benefit of having a ceremonial list or access to ceremony brings me back to this notion of how precious life is and how sacred it is and how powerful of a being I am, that I can transmute energy and I can not be a slave to time, but like really trust the alignment of my life because I'm so deeply connected to ceremony. And I was just telling my partner earlier, and she asked me this question. I feel like I'm adding a question now, and but she asked me this question. Um, as I was sharing some of my notes with her, and she said, "Well, what brought you to ceremony in the first place? Was it before or with me that you really came into, the role of ceremonialist?" And I said to her, which I love the fact that she brought me back to this place, but I said to my partner, partnership brought me back to this audacity of ceremony, so that I was able to put ceremony in the front. And then my business, my partnership, even my role in motherhood behind that. But ceremony is in the front. And as long as I honor ceremony as I would a governing entity and source energy above and around me, but ceremony is always at the forefront of everything that I do, so that everything else behind it or underneath it is anchored because ceremony is holding it. Uh, but I long for the day, and I think we're there. It's a time. It's not necessarily just a trend or a hashtag, but I feel like we're there. Humanity returning back to the grace and the sacredness of ceremony.
Mm, I
Mm.
love that. I love that. I think we've mentioned the word ceremonialist a few times, and assumption that people know what that means. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to define what that is, just so folks are very clear as to what that is.
Ceremonialist, I would say, if I could put Mick on the spot for a moment, because I was not necessarily calling myself a ceremonialist. I'll give you the Cliff Note version. As I've come into being born into a lineage of priests and priestesses, and being a seventh generation preacher's kid myself. So there are a lot of things that just felt innate, and I didn't think of this protocol way of living um, was a ceremonialist. And then Mick comes in and so graciously blesses my website and my marketing skills and all of that, and that word came back to me. So at the core, if you take ceremony and ceremonialist, the ceremonialist stands as the facilitator and the gateway into your ceremony. Nothing happens by force or by way of our intention alone, but it is just with the permission and the grace and the invitation of the group or the person that comes and commissions me and and asks me to help them, to guide them, to facilitate a life transition for them. And so this is what I do. I act as a guide and a facilitator, bringing people through beautiful transitions in life, and sometimes complex, sometimes just easeful and joy filled. Rather, that's the tween that is coming into her body, whether that is the soon to be mother coming into the position of sacred motherhood, the father as well. Um, Whether that is weddings, I did my first wedding ceremony this year as well. I've done transitions of life and funerals as well. But as a ceremonialist, we just stand as I say, as gatekeeper, standing at the doorway of you crossing over. So you have help and you have a witness and you have a guide to acknowledge, because that's another important element of ceremony, is that there are witnesses around you, which is what community is, to celebrate with you, to clap for you, but also we stand as acknowledgement and to confirm. Here's right, your confirmation that yes, you have done the work. We see you, we acknowledge you, and we're with you while you are crossing over. So as ceremonialist, that's what I do. But I say I can interchange that with the word doula, spiritual birth doula. But ceremonialist, I'm still finding my way into easing into that way of living.
I want to take a moment and just give you some flowers. So I talked about this in the shamanism episode that we did a while back, but on my journey, learning about my lineage and learning about how I'm connected ancestrally to African medicine people, shamans, I came to you and you held a ceremonial space for me to go through the rites of passage to fully understand what that connection was about. And where I want to give you flowers in particular is that you did it in a way that was very just graceful, I'd say. Like, I think part of me wanted to be kinda spoon-fed a lot of the answers. Like, there's this analytical part of me that was like, "I need all of the details," but what you did was you gave the container, the space, and basically pushed me to explore it for myself and define it on my own, with a level of autonomy that in the long run would have a lot more meaning to me, right? Because it's a journey that I explored. I wasn't spoon-fed everything, right?
Oh, that's so beautiful. Can we share the flowers? I I do. I receive it, but I share the flowers with you, and this is something I just talked about too with one of my elders as I was in Oaxaca. And she said to me, if you find yourself going through a certification into understanding the rites of passage or of life or shamanism or ceremony, if you think that it's coming by way of a certificate, you have been led wrong. And it just solidified some things in me. Although she wasn't the first to walk me through the lens and the path of priesthood and ceremonialist, but just her confirming that along my walk in this moment in time, that a lot of us do want our hands held. I would love that now, and some of the initiations that I'm experiencing, but the journey is the medicine. And knowing that I could give you all my notes and a full curriculum and book as to what to expect or what to do, but the way that you are able to craft, which is a ceremony in itself, your identity, your medicine, your gifts, your magic, the way you're able to curate that is the ceremonial, or let me say, the ceremonial journey um, that you have been able to partake in. I'm just glad to have been a mile marker along the way.
For sure. I appreciate it. That's awesome. Kira, again, thank you for that that guidance that you gave me. I want to kind of talk a little bit more, going back to what we were earlier with like these everyday ceremonies. The question is, how can we incorporate ceremonies into our lives, whether that's by ourselves or within our families or even within a larger community group where we come to a ceremonialist like and experience a larger ceremony. How does that look like for kind of everyday people who want more ceremony?
Yes, everyday ceremonies, something as subtle as nature walks. I heard Jen talking about forest bathing on one of your podcasts. That's a ceremony in itself, taking the Eastern discipline and lens of what it means to walk through the forest and allow nature to absorb whatever is happening in my auric field is a ceremony. Taking my time is a ceremony. Before my feet hit the floor and I rise in my bed, just taking the first 11 minutes of my day. I'm intentional with the numbers and the time, right? But it could be 3 minutes, 11 minutes. You pick your number that feels good to you. But before your feet touch the floor, that you bring in the sacred ceremony into not just your room, your bed, and your body before you come into the world of movement. Um, and so there's so many invitations that humanity is given to create ceremony. Nature keeps coming up, so I'm going to keep coming back to nature. But, we have our standard birthdays and, we have the celebrations of life. I would love to see, the ancestral spirit calling ceremonies come back where we're not just wailing and calling in deities and gods and goddesses because we're afraid of something, but, you know, in past cultural contexts, autumn equinox would have been celebrated with a communal ceremony in honoring the transition from summer to fall. So I would say allowing yourself to be open to slower transitions, bringing yourself to a place of accepting acknowledgement. Because sometimes, for those that don't want to acknowledge or I would say take the graduation. I don't need a certificate. I don't need all those accolades. I don't want all of that attention, right? Allowing yourself to receive. Allowing yourself to receive from outside of you and giving yourself the grace and the compassion and the personal acknowledgement saying that I'm proud. I'm happy that not just that it's over, but oh, I'm glad I actually went through that season. These are small moments of ceremony where you just pause and you take a moment to acknowledge something you've done, where you are now, and the blessings and the intention that you are setting for where you're headed. And if you just build that core around every event in your life, then you too are a ceremonialist.
Hmm. I love that. I think I was taken to this imagery of, Monday through Friday when we're waking up to get our kids ready for school. It can feel like this, like, you know, like we're walking in mud routine. It's
Mm-hmm.
just repetitive and it's
Slog.
just like, but if you kind of reframe it to like, this is a ceremony that we're participating in as a family every morning, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of set an intention and like just take it from a sense of that ceremony point of view, right? There's certain rituals that we do. We brush our teeth. We,
Mm-hmm.
we say affirmations together in the mirror. We make lunch, right? Like those are little rituals. And if you turn it around from being a chore into a ceremonial, that's filled with rituals, it changes the feel and the tone, I think, of those mornings. So,
Yeah.
Key word you said was taking the chore away from it. So if I take the angst, if you just remove angst from a lot of our daily activities, take the anxiousness away, take the pressure and take the angst away, then everything that you do feels more spacious. Spaciousness has been my word for 2024. At the beginning of the year, I said I want to create more space in everything I do between clients, between phone calls, between getting up, going from one room to the next. because it's a transition. Anytime I get ready to shift my body from one position to the next, if you know what happens as we are becoming wiser, you move too fast, you start to feel some things, right? So creating more spaciousness is an invitation to like seeing ceremony as a way of life, as opposed to, oh, it's another thing that I have to do.
I love that. I know, because there have been days where I was like, I'm just so tired of, especially when I was working in an office. I was
Yeah.
like, I just don't feel like getting dressed. And I remember I worked with a woman who she got up very early and she would, she's like, oh, I get up super early. I was like, it takes you that long to get ready? She was like, no, I just take my time. And I was like,
Mm.
I need every minute of sleep. I'm waking up until the last minute and then I'm getting ready. And
Yeah.
I was like, and she's just like, and she would come in dressed to the nines and would just kind of float
Yeah.
in. And I don't think she was thinking about it in any type of spiritual context, but
Yeah.
just like thinking about it.
That vibe, that energy, like, it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah.
You're describing the way she flowed, the way she graced. You see the words that you're using?
Where I was coming in like Viola Davis with my bag and How to Get Away with Murder, just clomping in. Here I am, sitting down. This was amazing, Kira. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Can you tell everyone again where they can find you if they haven't heard you on the podcast before? Let them know where you are on social media, and on the web.
Yes. For interview that are I won't say in need, in desire of assistance, teaching, curriculum, ceremonial, facilitating, any of those things. A doula of all sorts. You don't have to be having a baby for me to be your doula. You can find me at kirabuckley.com, Kira Buckley on Instagram as well. Info at heyhealer.com, and that's hey with 2 Y's, HEYYHEALER.com. And on all of those platforms, you'll find a variety of ways that I service groups and individuals on up to corporate. Well, and create these invitations and spaces for ceremony as a way of healing and living and being in joy.
All right. Thanks again, Kira. As always, we love having you on the show.
Thank you.
Both love you.
All right, that's the show. Kira, as always, thank you for being on the show. We love you so much. You are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Friendly reminder to check out our mailing list. I'm serious. You don't want to miss what we have cooking up for you guys. Okay.
Yep.
I'm very, very excited. So use the link in the show description or visit chakrasandshotguns.com.
And finally, guys, as always, if you're loving the show, please subscribe and give us 5 stars wherever you watch or listen.
Namaste.